for the opportunity to be here and also including me in the instruction course. I'll be talking about regulatory requirements of ophthalmic operation theatres. As surgeons, we all know that the most dreadful complication in a post any ophthalmic surgery would be endophthalmitis or the TAS, the toxic anterior segment syndrome. So it's very important to have a proper environment while we are operating, because one of the high risk areas is the operation theatre. Somewhere I read that the operation theatre is considered the heart of the hospital. But I always, when I talk to my nurses, I say the sanctum sanctorium. When you go to the temple, the most sacred place in the temple is that. So you have to give that respect to the operation theatre. I always tell them at all times, because what happens in the morning when everybody is around and the theatre is on, everything is maintained. But then in the evening when you go, the whole place is chaos. Everything is dropped down. So it's always better to maintain the theatre in the same status, whether it is morning, evening, or any time of the day. That is why I said sanctum sanctorium. So, the regulations for operation theatre, one way we are, lucky and glad that the government has given this National Building Code. There are 2 volumes on this. So it's very important to follow the regulatory protocols, which is advised by the government. And now a lot of stringent actions have been taken on that. The fire safety has to be taken into account for the safety of the workers of the hospital and also the patients. And you have to be very selective upon the building material, the products you use in the OT and all that have to be kept in mind. And the National Program of Control of Blindness also has a role in what is to be done in the ophthalmic OT. And with the recent National Accreditation Board for Hospitals, they have a separate accreditation standard for eye care organization, which gives a detailed protocols for what is to be used in the operation theatre and what are the validation methods which you can use to test if your processes are correct. And the important requirements in the OT would be the designing of OT, very important, and then the heating, ventilation and air conditioning system, and the other disinfection protocols which you use for the sterilization of instrument for the OT environment, and more importantly the periodic validation, which I will be talking about in my further slides. And first of all, the very important thing is position of OT, because initially the positioning of OT was not paid much attention. Like in the hospital where I work, which was built 23 years ago, we have the OT in the first floor where so much of patient movement is there. So now we are coming up with the new block, and all the other new facilities of Aravind Eye Care System, the OT is on the 5th floor where the least patient load is there. So that is very important to position the OT in a particular place. This was interesting. This was an oil painting which was called the Agnew Clinic, 1889, by Thomas Eakins. This was mainly to honor David Agnew, who was an anatomist working in the University of Pennsylvania. This is just to depict how the theatre used to be there in olden days. I think that is why it was called as a theatre, I think, because people were sitting around and watching the surgery. And but now the zoning of OT is another new thing which has come up. So you need to zone the OT into protective zone, clean zone, aseptic zone and disposable zone. This is mainly to prevent the bacterial contamination and also to maintain different pressure gradients in the different zones. So this is the layout. Do you have a pointer here? Okay. So if you can see that in the zone 1, you will have the protective zone will have the unsterile, the reception, the changing area, thank you, the changing area, the record maintenance and all that. And then coming to the second zone, the semi-sterile zone, you will have the change room, the transfer zone, and then the sterile will have the scrubbing, gowning, blogging, the autoclave room and all that, and also the surgery operating rooms will be in the sterile zone. And the disposal zone will be the equipment and supplies. And more importantly, this is what is important. You have to follow the unidirectional flow. You can mark this green and the red. So this is very important to maintain this corridor to prevent infection. And coming to the next most important thing is the heating, ventilation, because the quality of air is very important, because another important factor for causing infection is the quality of air. So you have to have dedicated air handling units, ducts, air conditioned compressors, and this AHU should run 24 hours with variable frequency. And then you have to have devices to conserve energy, and then you have to have 2 pre-HEPA filters which are 5 and 3 micron sizes, and then you have to have the laminar airflow and the 0.3 HEPA filter. Again, this HEPA filters have made a revolution. because olden theaters we used to have the system of formalization, fumigation, but these theaters which is HEPA filter, you don't need to do any fumigation. So these are the requirements. I'm not going to the details. These are the requirements of the air changes, the velocity and the positive pressure which has to be maintained. And the temperature and humidity is also another factor which you have to keep in mind. So all the theaters should have a temperature monitoring system so that you see how much of humidity and temperature is there and make sure it is maintained. And this is just a video to show you the, how the airflow should be there in the OT. So the HEPA filter system, so you have to have the efficient particulate air systems, which almost brings 99.97, about a 0.3 microns. So it removes most of the microns, ranging in size from 0.5 microns. So it's very important to have these kind of systems. And this is not good for operation theaters. You can go in for a split air condition if you do not have a facility to have a HEPA system. And inside the operation theater, this is very important. You have to have this hermetically sealed doors, preferably stainless steel if you have access, the stainless steel roofing, and then the flooring has to be in a particular way, and this kind of a coving is very good for cleaning, and also it prevents deposition of bacteria and prevents contamination. And there are also other areas of high risk surveillance, like you have to keep in mind about the hospital acquired infections. Needle stick injuries have to be kept in mind. It is very important to sensitize your staff and the other other workers in the hospital about all this, and make sure that proper action is taken against the needle stick injuries and other hospital acquired infections, because the source of infection could be any of this, because so many people are handling, and then so many instruments, especially when you have an overloaded operation theater, there are so many sources of infection. So you should keep that in mind and try to take action to avoid infection. And always better to create an environment which is free of living microorganisms, including spores. So you have to have a proper cleaning of the operation theater. So microbiological surveillance should be done. The OT should be cleaned with solutions which are recommended, and then also the walls should be cleaned with wet mops, and that is very important to also check for sampling the growth of microorganisms with different you have to check the air quality. You can do the settle plate technique, and you can take swabs from the theater, which will give an indication if there's any contamination. Coming to the sterilization proper, the autoclaves which are used for sterilization, the vertical autoclave is not good because it doesn't really maintain the pressure gradient, but the horizontal is a very good one. Flash autoclaves can be used, but it is not really recommended in ophthalmology, but for dropped instruments they say you can use a flash autoclave. And this is just an indication. The double door autoclaves are very good now. They have their own printers and indicators which will give you the cycle time, set pulses. It's a lot more easy for you to, even during the process you will know what is the cycle time, so which will help you to get better sterilization done. So this is just a documentation sheet which Dr. Revathi already showed you. This is the CSST team, their documentation. This is our senior CSST team in charge. So you can see the documentation of all the process of sterilization. And this is very important to maintain these records. And the chemical indicators, you have 6 chemical indicators. The class 5 and 6 are the most crucial one, because if you use this and this helps to to show you if you have achieved all the critical parameters. And again, the TST is very important to see how much temperature, steam and time. So this is also another indicator. And again, the monitoring record. So this just showing you what we follow at our hospital. So this is the monitoring record which shows the color change. And the most important test, the Bowie-Dick test, which is mainly to test the vacuum levels in an empty load sterilizer. This helps you to get the sterility assurance level. And this probability, the probability of this test is 1 in a million spores survive the process, because we know that the bugs don't lie. So you use the biological indicators. This is double, it has got 2 chambers, inner and outer chamber. The inner chamber will have broth, and the outer chamber will have the thermoresistant thermophilus. So if the color changes to violet, then if the color remains violet, then there is no problem. But if the color changes to yellow, it means that it is not, there's some kind of infection. So again, this is just to show the, why I'm showing all these, these charts is just to show you how strictly we maintain these protocols. So this is just to show the different autoclaves, A, B, C, D, and then the result. And the incubation period is 48 hours, but then now I hear that there are some rapid readers where you can get results within 2 to 3 hours. And coming to the instruments, these are the sets which are autoclaved in between surgery. So we also have indicators whether the sterilization is done properly. And again, sterilization of instruments is very important. You have to use the ultrasonic cleaner can be used with the proper cleaning of the ultrasonic cleaner itself. And then very importantly, the main, one of the main culprits for causing TARS would be these enzymatic detergents. So it's very important to clean them, your phaco handpiece, your tubings, and then ethylene oxide sterilization also has a role. So certain instruments and equipments which cannot be steam autoclaved, so you should also use the E2O. And fluids which are used in the operation theater could be another culprit. So whenever we open a new batch of fluids, so we always take one sample from the batch, and then it is you tend to find out is there any growth in the organism. So this is again kept in kept in record. So it's very important, any BSS or a ringer lactate or any viscoelastic which you use, sampling is done. And again, like Dr. Revati mentioned, what batch is used and which is used is always mentioned in the case sheet. This will be helpful when you get an untoward incident. To review the records will give you an idea. So again, the doctor also gets to know. So every day when the doctor comes into the OR, the practice which we have in our hospital, we have to sign this. You can see Dr. Gopinath, Dr. Shalini. So this we sign it, so we know that this is being done. This is like a double check. Even if the CSST team does it, the doctor who comes to theatre also checks it. So once you know that there is a contamination, then you recall, don't take any efforts, just recall. And also we have a habit of informing the company before that there is a problem in this batch so that they will be alert. So again, I was talking about the sampling in the different theatre areas. So this is just to show you the, from front, back, floor, air condition, wall. So this is taken and then we monitor. This is usually done once a week. Sometimes it can be done twice a week if the load is more. And most importantly, another important thing which we use in the OR is the water. So you need to have a reverse osmosis plant and make sure the water quality is good. And then hand wash is very important. Again, hand washing complaints, audit has to be done to make sure, because not everybody follows the protocol. So it's another important step in the operation theatre to prevent infection. And most importantly, and the last would be the biomedical waste management. So because we know that 15% of the infected waste can become 100%, it is just very important to sensitize all the people in the OR and the housekeeping, the medical, paramedical, the patients and the public and environment to proper biomedical waste management. And preferably the segregation should be done at the source, which is very important. And because if you don't do it at the source, you will be spreading infection. They'll take the whole thing elsewhere and then it will be contaminated. So, and you store it for only to about 48 hours. And the fluid we use normally, like Revati mentioned, we keep it for 48 hours in case any untoward incident happens. So all this safety requirement, if you follow, you definitely can aim at a 0% incident of postoperative endophthalmitis. And we at our institute, it was initially like 0.07, now we've come to 0.01. So because I take care of the operation theatre, I know very well if you're very stringent, if you validate all your results, even sometimes dreams can become reality like this. And I want to end by saying that Florence Nightingale said that it may seem a strange principle to enunciate as the very first requirement in a hospital is that it should do the sick no harm. So most of the infections could be iatrogenic, so one should take all the precautions, because eye is a very small structure, so anything harmful can, the results can be devastating. So we should all work together to, to bring an environment which is safe and, protective for the patients. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. The records shown were practically useful to us. I will invite Dr. Anand Deshpande for his next talk. And meanwhile, while sir gets ready, I shall like to know from Dr. Kalpana, madam, some practical points. One is about scrubbing. So scrubbing, should it be done after every case? That in between the cases, after every case?
Ideally, it should be done after every case. That is what the American Academy, all the guidelines give. But sometimes in a high volume theater like us, we may not be able to do it for every case, but we do it every hour.
Every hour.
Every
right.
hour we scrub the theater, yes.
Right. So basically, if the surgeon has taken the morning bath, then he may not scrub after every case. Okay, right. Okay. And another point which
You are asking about the scrubbing the theater or the surgeon?
the surgeon.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was thinking theater. The surgeon, we don't do after every case, but then the recommendation is after every case, and you have to deglove, came everything, and but
It's
we,
time-consuming.
some institutes do that. We change the gloves. Yes, we change the gloves for every case, but we don't scrub. For every case, madam? Yes, for every case.
So any more audience questions for madam? We have a panel discussion while you think over the questions. Another question which I had in mind is that use of phaco tip. Like phaco tip, it should be changed after every case. How practical is it? Should it be done or not? Recommendations are many actually. So we
The
cannot have a
phaco tip-
5-star OT.
Yeah, the phaco tip ideal recommendation by the company is single use. But it is not practical with the expense. You can't use it single. So you can use it. I mean, some companies you can for 10, 15 cases, but you can even use up to 100 cases. But then use one phaco tip for every case. You can
Okay.
autoclave it and reuse it again.
Okay, for the next case. Right.
Yeah, for every case, a new one.
Yeah, sure. Mike for the.
Until now, still now, I think, the blame for in not time like this, I always used to point my finger to the surgeon. He's the one who let in the box. No matter how, in our time we used to have 180 degree, now it comes to 2.2, 2.8, but still it's the surgeon who let the box in. Having listened to you, it's not the surgeon only, it's so many factors, protocol. Still, do you believe in what I say, that the blame, if you want to point someone, is the surgeon?
No, sir, I think the surgeon has to take a major role because what happens a lot of times, the surgeon does not pay attention. They take everything for granted. So, it's the surgeon's role to take responsibility. I've seen surgeons who operate don't take notice of what is happening around. But I think he has to take that's what I'm saying. The surgeon definitely has a role because he is responsible. So, when you are responsible, you have to take all the efforts to see everything around you is right. So, in a way, it's the surgeon also has to take a, major role because he'll be the one who will be called and
Can you add that?